not having the right. I think the biggest lesson is to realize that prayer is like a sword. Prayer is our sword. That's our sword. But really the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, it's not only prayer, and some say um, the merit of Torah, keeping Torah, keeping the fulfillment of Torah. That is the sword for the Jew.
It's a reframe. It's like, do this for Hashem. Really, you're reframing it as this is for you.
Right, right. For your success, the Jewish community's success.
And that really comes down to all the sport. Rabbi Ibragimov was saying the other day that there's the Pirkei Avot about 1 minute here is like 1 minute of Olam Haba is like a lifetime here. But in some ways, it's also flipped because one day here where you can do the mitzvot,
Gives you that.
but not just that, they can be, the value is here as well.
Big
And
time.
you could put Olam Haba completely aside for a second and just focus on here, and it would still be worth it. It gives the example of like, there's the guy, the big yeshiva donor, and he's like, we're 60, and the rabbi says, why don't you just come learn at the yeshiva all day now? And he says, I thought you told me, Rabbi, I was going to be next to you in Olam Haba just from donating. And the rabbi says, you are next to me. That's done. But this is for you.
For this world.
Yeah, this is just for you. Like, this is for this world. Yeah.
Exactly. To have the real enjoyment of this world. I mean, with Sam? Yeah. Right. 100%. Very well said. Tisha B'Av, person can't learn the regular, normal learning during the 7 day when a person, chas v'shalom, when they lose a close relative that they have to sit in mourning, they can't learn the regular learning because regular learning makes you happy. People are looking for happiness. The way to go is to learn. That will bring that's a kosher drug. A lot of people are on that drug today. More people are getting onto that drug.
And I heard someone say that exact same
and everything is, all the side effects are positive, and it's great, and it's a win, and it brings happiness, true happiness, real happiness, and brings the blessing. So and I think as we see more of it, we see the community here. You see what's going on over here with the increase of learning here and in Brooklyn and the Sephardi community. I think they're really, enjoying this drug, and it's really making a difference in their lives, the lives of their wives, their children, and because really, in a certain sense, for some people, it's either this drug or the other drugs.
Yeah, there has to be.
Right? Either for a lot of people, some people there, especially the young people of today's generation. The young people today's generation it's so common, easy to accessible to have the bad drugs. Now they have this is the real deal. This is the real thing. And this is what was meant for people to have. Hashem created the world, gave this to the Jewish community. Okay, we are on Iboyalahu. Let's say hello to our good friend Nisim. Thank you for all your help in the recordings. We're on 38A2. Iboyalahu. Ava Vishah. See, the only thing is referring to Torah as a drug because drugs have that negative connotation. So I don't know if it's the right word to use, but that's for today's society. I have to use it.
I think
it's all right.
It's a close enough.
Close enough. Okay, you understand what I'm saying. Iboyalu, Ama Vishahamai, Mi Kansura Bonanolo. So we're on 38A2 on the bottom. If somebody violated the laws of Shia means leaving food before Shabbat in a fashion which was not allowed to be left. Let's say it was not according to the opinion that says it has to be fully cooked and deteriorating. It wasn't fully cooked and deteriorating. According to Hananya, it has to be at least, Meichel ben Rusoya, either third cooked or half cooked, but it wasn't a third or half cooked, it was less than that. And there's concerns you might come to stoke the fire. That's the main concern. Now the question is, did the rabbis give you a fine to forbid you from using it on Shabbat? Now that you violated the rabbinic law or not? And we spoke yesterday. We seem to have concluded earlier that if you intentionally left food that was not cooked on the fire, if you intentionally left such food, they would give you a fine, and if it wasn't fully cooked, and even if you did it unintentionally, if it wasn't fully cooked when you left it, they still said you can't use it because maybe you're going to put it there intentionally and then say I did it unintentionally. If you're going to allow the guy who unintentionally puts food before Shabbat when it wasn't fully cooked, and he forgets to remove it, to close the fire before Shabbat, if you're going to let him to use that food on Shabbat, we're afraid that people are going to make a trick. They'll intentionally place the food there before Shabbat, before it's fully cooked, and then they'll say, I forgot. And then they'll come to you want to use it on Shabbat when they really didn't forget. They really intentionally placed it there. So therefore we say, if you didn't intentionally eat it, place it there, you cannot use it on Shabbat. So what's the Gemara's question here? So if you could use the food, the Gemara, so some commentators explain, referring to the case where you did not know the law. It's not that you forgot it. I knew I can't leave it there. I forgot it. I did not know the law. He intentionally placed the food before Shabbat, let's say, on the fire, before it was completely cooked. But he didn't know the law. He didn't know the law that you are not allowed to do that. So now, do we give him the fine? Do we give him the fine or not? So, and also, if the food would have been placed before Shabbat and it was fully cooked before Shabbat, we have a machloket between Rameh and Rabbi Yehuda and that Gemara early also. Let's say, remember if you put food before Shabbat that was fully cooked, but if it was still being enhanced, it was still benefiting, right? It was like a cholent. So let's say you put it was fully cooked, but the longer it's cooking, let's say it's getting better. So we had a machloket, the Rabbanan hold, obviously you can't place a cholent on a fire, directly on a fire before Shabbat if it's still getting better. Maybe you're going to stoke the coals, right? Because it's enhancing. But after the fact, if you did it, so we had Rameh said you can't if you intentionally, Rameh said if you intentionally went ahead and did that, he says you could go ahead and even if intentionally, unintentionally, you could go ahead and use it. You could eat from it. And Rabbi Yehuda says no, because since it's getting enhanced, it's getting better. We're afraid you violated the prohibition. He's going to give you a fine. You can't use that cholent on Shabbat. And when we have an argument between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, the law follows like Rabbi Yehuda. So if the guy intentionally placed the food before Shabbat and it was fully cooked and it was a cholent and it's being enhanced, based on the law, you follow Rabbi Yehuda, you should not be able to use it. So what's the Gemara's question? That's how we came up with the Ritva, or one of the Mefarshim explained that we're talking about not the case that you intentionally place. The Gemara also said earlier, if you the case is you placed it there intentionally, but not that I knew I couldn't do it. I placed it there intentionally, but I did not know there's a problem. I did not know there's a problem. I didn't know the law. That's the case. So now, so what's the halacha? Tashma. The Gemara says Tashma. Come in here. The Amar Shmuel Banatan. Amar Rabbi Chanina. Kishahalach Rabbi Yossi Sipori. Rabbi Yossi went to Sipori. He went to that town. Motza Chamin, he found Chamin, good morning, Asaf. He found hot liquid, Shenishtahu al gabi kira. They left the hot liquid, the hot water, on the stove. And that hot liquid that was left in the stove was, let's say it was fully cooked before Shabbat. So, he did not forbade them to drinking that water. Why? Because that water is deteriorating, it's evaporating. So therefore, it's going down in its status. So you don't have to be afraid. He's going to go ahead and what? And raise the temperature. So therefore, that water is fine. However, Beitzim Mutzimokot, he found that they had eggs, and the eggs were cooking very well. And he found that were found al gabi kira, they were found on top of the stove. And he says, guys, you can't eat these eggs on Shabbat. Meaning to say, the eggs, the more they cooked, the Gemara is saying they were getting better, they were improving, they were getting enhanced like a challah. And he says, you can't eat it. He forbade them because you violated the prohibition of leaving food directly on a fire. Right? What was the problem here? They left the food directly on a fire. It's now after the fact. We've been discussing about before the fact. What can you do? What can't you do before Shabbat with the food? Now the guy did it. He was wrong. He went ahead and he left the eggs on the fire before Shabbat, an open fire, no blech, no covering the fire. And now he walks into the kitchen. He walks into somebody's kitchen on Shabbat. He's washing his hands from the Tilat Yadayim. And then he sees the fire is on, the pot's on the fire, the egg's on the fire. There's no cover of the fire. So he said, it's no good. He said, we can't use that. You can't eat that. And what was the case? He found it. They didn't know. They put the eggs on it wasn't that the eggs were on the fire by mistake, the fire was still on. They intended to put the eggs on the fire, but the people in this town didn't know the law. And he says, you know what? The fact that you didn't know the law, but you intentionally placed it on the fire. He said you can't eat that. You can't eat that food. My love. So when he forbade it to them. So the Gemara understood. The Gemara was thinking, what do you mean he forbade it to them? Most probably it means he forbade it to them. He says, my love, most probably he says Oto Shabbat. Meaning, most probably he told them this is forbidden. When he says this is forbidden, does it mean it's forbidden? You can't eat it, he means? Or he means it's forbidden that next week, don't do this before Shabbat. Don't leave the eggs before Shabbat there. But not that you can't eat it today. What does it mean it's forbidden? He forbade this to them. He forbade them that don't do this practice next week, but you can still eat it today. Or he said you can't eat it today. So the Gemara was thinking, my love, perhaps, most probably, did Lotu Shabbat, isn't that he forbade them from eating the eggs that week, that Shabbat, and we can learn from here that a food that was left on a stove, it's not that the fire was not removed, open fire you cannot eat from. So the Gemara says, Lo, the Shabbat haba, not necessarily. Maybe it's possible that Rabbi Yossi said you can't do this practice. He forbade them from doing this practice, that don't do this next week. Before Shabbat, don't leave it on open fire. But he didn't say you can't eat the eggs this week. Maybe he allowed you to eat the eggs this week.
Because it wasn't improved?
Morning. Because even though the eggs are improving, but since he did not know the law, the reason why he left it there was because of not knowing the law. So maybe he has a right to eat from it. that is that's what the Gemara is suggesting. Now, the Gemara is now Michlal. The Gemara said let's deduce that the beitzim, eggs, mutzamokos, that the eggs that are already cooking, mitztamkot v'yafalem ninu. They're getting better and better because that's why Rabbi Yossi can we, why did Rabbi Yossi say it's forbidden? Most probably it's not because the eggs were, not because he held that even when it's deteriorating, it's forbidden, right? Meaning when he said it's forbidden, and especially he made a contrast between water, which we all know water is evaporating, and he said you could have the water, and he said you cannot have the eggs. So most probably it's because the eggs are improving. Could we infer that eggs are type of foods that are improving, and that's the reason why he said it's a problem. So the Gemara says, yes, it is correct. Eggs, the more they cook, they are improving. One time, ani Rebbe lemokam echad. I don't know if you want to mention the group that we're on. Maybe we'll get a person or two towards the end of the class. We know the 20 minutes left. Exactly. Me and Rebbe came to the same place. And we came to this place. We were guests during the weekdays. And Heviu lefanenu, and they brought in front of us beitzim mutzumokot. They brought in front of us eggs that were very well cooked, that they became so small. The more you cook it, the more it's getting small. It became ki'uzdradin. It became so small like the kuzradin. Now, Rashi gives us a French translation of the kuzradin, but it became how they'll translate it. They'll say over here, like as sorb apples. They were small as sorb apples. That's how they translate it over here. That means it became very small, tiny, small. I mean, the eggs were so well cooked that became so small, like the size of these, whatever these sorb apples are. If you want to look up whatever you want, what these sorb apples are. And you know what? And we ate a lot of them. We ate a lot of these eggs. Even though these eggs they were so well cooked, and they became, and as the more they're cooking, they were going just like a soup. The more you cook it, the more it's diminished. So the eggs were getting smaller, but they were so good that we ate so much of them. So we see from here that the more it's cooking, the fact that they ate a lot of them, says v'achalnu mehen harbe. We ate a lot of these eggs. Now, this wasn't during Shabbat, because if it was during Shabbat and it was on an open fire, they wouldn't have eaten from it, right? Because it's improving. And maybe they would stoke the coal. So we're talking about what happened during the weekdays, that we came to a certain place, and they gave us these eggs that were so well cooked that they were delicious. They had shriveled until they were as small as the sorb apples, and we ate from them. So that is that. So we see from here that it is very beneficial. The more you cook eggs. Remember the Gemara earlier spoke about there are certain foods. Certain foods improve as you cook them. Certain foods, get worse as you cook them. And first, it's important to know, because you have to know which foods. If you hold that you have to leave it on. If you hold in order to leave it on an open fire, it has to have been fully cooked and it's deteriorating. So you got to know which foods are deteriorating. You got to know which foods are improving, right? So that's why it's important to know about the eggs. If you want to leave eggs, you will not be able to leave eggs before Shabbat on open flame, even though it's fully cooked, because the longer it's there, it is improving. Um, so so here we have a quote from the Shulchan Aruch. Let's see the quote. They quote the Rambam here. He says in the Aliba Hilchata, at the end of the back of the Masifta Gemara, says any food that you're not allowed to leave on the fire, and you left it on the fire, um, or food that you were not allowed to return to the fire, and a Jew returned to the fire, you're not allowed to eat it on the Shabbat, and on Motzei Shabbat, on Saturday night, you wait until after Shabbat, the amount of time that would have taken you to do that act of warming up or whatever that amount of time that you're benefiting from it. Let's say you left it on the fact that you left it on the fire, that extra, the extra, you got an extra, how long would it have taken me after Shabbat to bring it to that level that it gained on this by leaving it there? Then I could go ahead and use it after Shabbat, after that amount of time. So let's see what they have in the commentary here. Mem Aleph. So looks like let's see, it's a very long discussion here. Let's see. Or maybe not. Where's the Mem Aleph? Mem Beis. So they say, even if you did it unintentionally, okay, so we have to see now. Let's see how because this would be a big question. Let's say you go to somebody's house on Shabbat, right? And somebody, prepared the food in a way that's not acceptable, right? They didn't, they left it on the fire before Shabbat. Now, we did find there are opinions that say as long as the food was a third of half cooked before Shabbat, even if you leave it on open fire, and then later on they take it off, that's chananya, that's fine, right? Because since it was a third or half cooked, we say that maybe you're not going to stoke the coals. The Chachamim hold that's not enough; it has to be fully cooked and deteriorating, right? We said there's two opinions in order for you to leave food on an open fire. Best is to follow the Chachamim's opinion, and therefore don't leave food on an open fire unless it's fully cooked before Shabbat and it's getting going down, deteriorating. So you're not going to come to stoke it. But the eggs will get better, so I can't leave the eggs, right? So what we do is to avoid all of this, to avoid this argument, because that's why we put the blech, the piece of metal on top of fire. Many people do is they have call it a blech. It's it's just a piece of metal, piece of aluminum, whatever. It's a blech that you put on top of the fire, it covers the fire, and many of those blechs also cover the knobs as well. And therefore, once you have that blech and you put the food before Shabbat, you don't have to worry. You're not going to come stoke the coals because you have this reminder and you already covered the fire. So you're not going to come to stoke the coals, and especially if the blech also extends and covers the knobs. But the best thing to do is to make sure your food is fully, even if you have a blech, and therefore technically you could, no problem, you can put the food any stage before Shabbat on the blech. First of all, it's not going to cook so great when you have that blech, if it's not fully cooked anyways before Shabbat, right? But the best thing is, good morning, Mark.
Morning, Rabbi.
But the best thing is to have the food fully cooked before Shabbat, right? Food fully cooked before Shabbat, and also have have that blech on top of it. If you're using a fire directly on a fire, have the blech and it's fully cooked before Shabbat, and that will help a lot of things as we'll go ahead and we'll see. Mark, regarding the discussion that we had, you know,
Yesterday.
yesterday or the other day about someone who puts up for Friday night if they're going to eat it 2.5 hours later, right? You know, what I would say if they're putting it in an oven, now I would say the best thing for that person, I would say, until we think of a better solution, is to cover the knobs. That definitely would be something that I heard in the name of Aaron Cutler that he took your position, Mark, that he said it's all about the knobs. And he says, as long as those knobs are covered, you're good. Because if you're good, at least, we're not, then it's not a violation of leaving food before Shabbat, even though the fire itself is not covered.
Right.
Ralph is not on there. No. Jaime is about to. Jaime, welcome to the class, Jaime.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Amy.
Hi, Mark.
So Mark, that's what I would say until we figure out a better solution. Obviously, the best solution would be if the food is fully cooked before Shabbat. The food is fully cooked before Shabbat, and because even though Mark brought up the point, we have if a person puts a raw meat before Shabbat, the Gemara says earlier, if you put raw meat before Shabbat in on a fire, because your mind is not going to be eating it till the next day, it's not going to be ready to very late. So we don't have to be afraid you're gonna stoke the coals because the raw meat takes so much time. But if a person plans on eating that meat that night, so it's hard to the fact, even though it's meat, but the fact is I'm planning on eating it later that evening. If I'm planning on doing that, so it should be an issue of maybe I might come to stoke the coals. So putting it in right before Shabbat raw should not really be, the allowance of that would be if I'm eating it tomorrow and it takes so many hours, but if I'm eating it tonight, I plan on eating it tonight, there should be a concern of stoking the
Or
coals.
if there's no knobs, there's no concern.
Right. So not if there's no knobs, that's like covering the
It's like
the knob.
covering it.
Right.
Or if you cover the knobs.
Right, but not everybody buys this idea. I mean, Moshe Feinstein, I don't think he buys that idea. Just cover the knobs is enough. I mean, even though the logic might be there, but the Gemara spoke about covering the actual covering the actual fire, doing something to
Right.
the fire itself, covering the fire, removing the coals, removing the thing that's causing the cooking.
And the
But
Sephardics hold 50% cooked. You're saying 100% cooked.
I'm saying Sephardic will hold, according to the halakha, that the Iker Hadin, meaning there are opinions to rely on. The Sephardic would hold that as long as it's 50% cooked, it's fine. As long as before Shabbat it's 50% cooked, we're not afraid you're going to come touch it. But they also would also recommend to be strict and not to no need not to rely. You don't need. It's better to be strict. And not to just rely on that opinion. It is it's an opinion that halachically that it is law. It could be law, but doesn't mean it's still better. It still would be better to I would say to be strict about it if you can. But if a person can't, for whatever the circumstances, it's definitely what to rely
Yeah, but
on.
if there's what to rely on, that it's not avirat the rabbanan. If your food is edible, meaning at least 50% cooked,
Correct, correct.
considered edible, then it's not an issue.
Right, that's not an issue, but the issue would be if the person's putting the food in right before Shabbat, and then we're getting it that then it's not edible. And now now that what would be the allowance? That's the question. The person is putting in the food before Shabbat. So if it's not a hot roast, then it's definitely a problem putting it right before Shabbat, right? Because it's not going to take so long to cook, and we said that's everybody agrees if it's less than 33% or less than 50%, everybody agrees you can't leave it on an open fire, right?
Wow.
That we all agree
So putting raw before Shabbat. If I cook rice, I say, okay, it's going to take a half hour, and I'm putting it on 10 minutes before Shabbat raw. It's a problem.
It's a big problem.
Not meat. Nothing raw goes on. Unless it's for the next day, it could go on raw.
So that is a question also. Meaning, what you just said right now.
And then you said the other thing is the raw meat. But if I have a vegan crock pot with no meat in it, is that a problem?
Right. So if it's not meat, if it's not meat, we said it cannot be raw before Shabbat. And even if I plan on eating, let's say a food that's not meat, and I plan on eating it tomorrow, is that good enough? The fact that I could eat it tomorrow, that I plan on eating something tomorrow, but the fact is, since that food has the ability to be eaten tonight, it will be ready tonight. So that's another question. It's not that is a discussion, another discussion, Mark. Because the only thing we found in the Gemara that if you put raw meat in and you plan on eating it tomorrow, the fact that it's not a problem because the meat is not ready. Right? There's two things happening. It seems like you're eating it tomorrow. It's not ready for tonight. It's not going to be ready when you want to eat.
So you won't soak the coals.
We won't come to soak the coals. But what about if you have a food that's not meat? I plan on eating it for Saturday morning, but not Saturday after davening.
It could be ready 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock.
But it could be ready at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock tonight.
Right.
So that food, that is a matter of discussion in the halacha. Is it good enough that I plan on eating it tomorrow, or my plan on eating it tomorrow is not good enough because I might change my mind tonight, and I might stoke people's appetites change. The decides okay, I'll eat the food tonight. I'm not in the mood tomorrow, but I'm hungry for that tonight, and now I might come to stoke the coast. So that's another discussion. We didn't go on record to say that you could go ahead and put a food raw before Shabbat that's not meat, because you plan on using it tomorrow. We didn't go on record to say that. That's a discussion because it's not something that's clear cut that could be done. But the best with the roast, what I would say.
Why? Maybe I could eat the meat too. Why are you separating meat out?
Because meat,
potato, and the meat could take the same time to cook.
So the Gemara was saying that we're talking about this meat, the way they cook the meat, it wasn't going to be ready at the normal time that you plan on eating. It would take many hours for it to be ready, and therefore your regular normal dinner that you were going to be having Friday night, it's not going to be ready. It's going to be ready maybe to me. It would be ready much later, and therefore you're not. It's not on your radar screen. It's not even fit. It's not fit for you during your meal for you to eat.
So if I had a food that takes 4 hours to cook, I don't know what it is. Let's say some kind of hard vegetable, squash or something really hard. Then is that okay, or it's only meat? That's where we're holding? Is it about the time, or is it about the ingredient?
No, I'm saying it would say whatever works like meat, whatever the amount of time. See, the other question is, what is this time period that we're talking about? How long in those days was it going to take for the meat to be ready? That we have to look at.
We never
was
said
it going to take 6 hours, 8 hours? Was it going to only be ready in the middle of the night? So that's not clear to me how long the meat was. But the logic would be anything that would take the amount of time as meat. It means that you plan on not eating from, you don't plan on eating from it because it's going to take, that dish is going to take that amount of time. It's for tomorrow. It's for tomorrow, and I can't, and I'm not going to be, I'm not thinking about it tonight for Friday night dinner because it's not going to be ready. It's not going to be ready till the middle of the night,
Okay,
let's say.
okay. So it's not the ingredient, it's the time.
Right. So that's what it would seem to be. But for somebody's roast, if somebody wants to put up a roast before Shabbat, so I would say to fulfill all the opinions. I mean, to fill at least the basic halacha. Let's talk about the basic halacha. It should be at least 50% cooked before Shabbat.
Right.
You're 50% cooked before Shabbat. You're at least fulfilling Hananiah's opinion. So even though there's the Rabbanan that said that's not good enough, okay, but you got at least that opinion. But even with that, but still, what's the big deal if a person's gonna just also? I would say do that 50% and cover the knobs.
Right.
And the 50% cover the knobs would, I think, be, at least you're in good shape. Now, is everybody are there going to be other opinions that are going to be lenient and say you don't even need that? Are they going to say that you could put it up right before Shabbat? There's other, the question is our stoves, our ovens different than the way they, the way they did it, meaning there's an opinion that says right. There's an opinion, very good. There's an opinion that says that maybe the issue of stoking the fire was only when the fire itself naturally is going down. But when you have an oven, the fire is not going down. So maybe the concern of stoking is not as strong. So now we said maybe you're going to raise the temperature, right? But the concern of the Gemara was when why do you stoke a fire? Remember we said there's like a coals create a ash, right? One more. The ash covers the films over the coals, and that makes it difficult for the fire to burn well. So therefore, by by moving the coals, now the fire is able to get back into shape. It's not that you're always stoking. You're only stoking it because there's an issue with the fire. But when there's no issue, when the fire just remains the same intensity the whole time, and when our ovens, so there's an opinion, there's an idea out there that says maybe maybe the whole problem is not a problem in our ovens. I'm not saying that we rely on that opinion, but just there is that opinion out there that the concern of stoking is not, the issue is not the same as the time with the Gemara with the way we have our setup of our fire. So there's a lot going on, a lot of different things moving around. Okay, I want to wish everybody a beautiful day. Shabbat Shalom. I know a lot of people are starting to put things on their ovens and signs and covers for their, Shabbat. It's not a big deal. We get a little tape, and it takes 2 minutes. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much for joining. Asaf, thank you so much for joining.
Much bigger risk.
Right. Very good. Adam says, a light switch, bathroom light. People, out of habit, they open the light. So what we do, wherever it's in London's house here, we have the Shabbat yeshiva there. They have, because a lot of times, different levels of guys come for Shabbat. We have light covers, Adam. We have light covers. A lot of people have light covers in their bathrooms. Everyone should have it, because even the greatest person, out of habit, you never know. You wake up in the middle of the night, you're 3/4 sleeping, and who knows if Chas v'Shalom, person will open the light on Shabbat. So therefore, the best thing is they have all these fancy light covers. The ladies won't get nervous. Go to a nice store. Tell your wife, buy the most fanciest light cover. How much is it going to cost? I don't think nothing. So therefore, Mark, right? You don't know who comes to your house. Who's in your bathroom? You don't know what their level is of.
Like sometimes even leaning on the wall.
Right, but leaning on the wall is right. Well, also it's a point. But it's much worse the bathroom, because leaning on the wall, you didn't intend to touch it. You're just walking by. But when you open the light on Shabbat, unintentional, meaning I forgot it was, that's a much, that's a much stronger problem.
That's not shogeg.
That's a shogeg, but it requires a chatat, a sin offering. If a guy walks and he,
On the wall, like
no, no, because I had no intent to do the act.
no,
There's no intention to do the act. You just walk by, I hit into the wall. I had no intention to do any act.
so my brother recessed his life.
Oh, so that, okay, that's a good move.
Lean on the wall.
No,
What do you
we,
mean reset the electricity?
it goes in.
If this is the wall.
The light switch is in, it's deep in
In
it.
the top.
It's inside, it's inside the wall. Like some people have their mezuzahs that way. So therefore, it's they won't touch it. But it's
Can't
all,
do by accident. And
Right.
even turning it on, you have to like go in. So it's
Right.
very deliberate.
but even that, I still would say the light cover is much better. The only thing is, it's a Friday afternoon chore that before, or you leave the light cover there all the time, but that serves as a reminder for the people. What's this light cover doing on the light? You too. Take care. All the best, everybody.